Hello viewers, you're welcome to another tutorial on quadratic equation. In this lesson, I'm going to show us the easiest way to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. Okay, but before we go into that, I want us to have a basic knowledge. The knowledge is if I have negative 3 to the power 2, it's simply 3 to the power 2. Why? Because negative 3 to the power 2 can be expressed as negative 3 times negative 3, which is equal to a positive 9. And of course, a positive 9 is simply 3 to the power 2. That means negative 3 to the power 2 is simply a positive 3 to that same power 2. Another example, if I have negative 7 to the power 2, is simply 7 to the power 2. Because if I have negative 7 to the power 2 can be expressed as negative 7 times negative 7, which will give me a positive 49. And of course, a positive 49 is simply 7, a positive 7 to the power 2. So generally, when we have a negative number like this to an even power, okay, it's simply the positive number, okay, to the even power. In other words, it's just like removing the negative sign when you have an even power. So with that being said, let us go over to the problem we have on the board. It is very clear that what we have on the board is a quadratic equation. It is quadratic on y, and y is the indeterminate in this question. You can see that y has the highest power of y here is simply 2, so we call it a quadratic equation. Now step 1, what I'm going to do right now is to take this constant term to the other side of the equation. So I'm going to have y squared minus 6y is equal to negative 8. Remember, it was a positive 8 before, but when it moved over the equality sign, it becomes a negative 8. That is step 1. Step 2, you divide both sides by the coefficient of y squared. You divide both sides by the coefficient of y squared. The reason for that is to make the coefficient of y squared to be 1 or unity. Now, if you look at the board, you can already see that the coefficient of y squared is already 1. So in step 2, there is no work to do. Move over to step 3. Step 3, we pick the coefficient of y, which is negative 6. We pick the coefficient of y, which is negative 6. We will divide it by 2, and we will square it. Okay? So negative 6 divided by 2 is simply negative 3 all squared. And remember, negative 3 all squared is simply 3 all squared. Okay? So when we have 3 all squared like this, what do? In step 4, we will add 3 squared to both sides of this equation. So I'm going to have y squared minus 6y, then plus 3 squared equal to minus 8 plus 3 squared. Okay, that's what we do in step 4. When we get this term, we add it to both sides of the equation. Now, look very clearly. I think in this time, you really need to come closer to your screen to see what I'm going to do right now. Now, in this left-hand side of this equation, I'm going to do a trick here right now, a very simple trick. I really want to write this expression in its compact form. So what I'll do is, I'll open a bracket like this, and I will close the bracket with a square. Yeah, you can see that we have in the extreme terms here, this is squared and this also is squared. So the extreme terms in the left hand side have squared. So I'm going to pick up this y, I'm going to pick up this 3, and the sign of this negative 6y is what will be here. So I have negative 3. Okay, so remember, you really need to write these extreme terms in square, so you can just easily bring up their term without the square. So when you expand this, you're really going to have this expression. So that we are done with the left hand side. This is how to write this expression in its compact form. So we'll move over to the right hand side of this equation. We have negative 8 plus 9, because 3 squared will give me 9. So okay, we move on. We have y negative 3 all squared is equal to minus 8 plus 9 is simply a positive 1. Okay, so we move this square from here by squaring both sides. So we have y minus 3 is equal to plus or minus square root of 1. Okay, yeah. And of course, square root of 1 is simply 1. So we have y minus 3 is equal to plus or minus 1. Okay, now we take it over to this side of the board. We have y, we collect like terms. This negative 3 does not belong here. It needs to go over to this equation, to this side of the equation. So we will be left with y is equal to, when it crosses over, it becomes a positive 3. Then we have plus or minus 1. Okay, now so y1 will be like when you take the plus or the minus sign. So right now I'm going to take the plus sign. So I have y1 is equal to 3 plus 1. Then y2 will be when you take the negative sign. So you have 3 minus 1. So let's simplify the y1 separately. So we have y1 is simply 4. Wow. And y2 is simply 2. So these are simply the roots of the quadratic equation. I hope this helped. God bless.